Welcome to Wolves After Dark, everybody. Look at this. We're doing real content, not a live stream today. We're going to talk about Timberwolves seeding, playoff seeding, where to expect to land in this Western Conference that is full of good teams. Obviously, with Karl-Anthony Towns falling to injury for the rest of the regular season at least, it's a little up in the air exactly where the Timberwolves are going to land, whether that be the 1 seed, the 6th seed, or something worse. Spoiler, it will not be worse than the 6th. I guess it's technically possible, but it won't be. One quick favor to ask before we get into this video. If you could like this video, if you're new here, subscribe. We go live after most, if not all, Timberwolves games. Might not be live this Sunday against the Lakers, but we will be live most of the games remaining in the season, and especially in the playoffs. Also, if you could follow us on TikTok, just Wolves After Dark on TikTok, like a couple of our videos, that would be hugely appreciated. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers there. We're over the hump of halfway, but we're going to need some help. So if you could join us there, that would be awesome. But let's get back into the video. All right, so as mentioned, we are going to be talking playoff seeding. Timberwolves, a little bit of a question mark right now. Towns injury. The team in general, since the first half of the season, has not been the same team. Still good, obviously. We're 44-20 as it stands right now. Today is March 9th. Yep, March 9th. We just lost to the Cavs yesterday, but we are still 44-20, so that's a very good team. Nobody's questioning that we are not good, but we're wondering how deep can we go? We're not going to go too much into conversations about deep playoff seeding and things like that. This is just based off of, Towns is out. Ant has been banged up, but not sitting. I have people like Na and Nas, although Nas played great the other night. We have not had that same three-point shooting from those two. Mike Conley hasn't looked the same. We're just trying to get a sense of where we could potentially fall to on the negative side, to see what you have to worry about, what you don't have to worry about, and where to go from there. All right, so I've pulled up the Western Conference playoff standings, and all these percentages are based off of where they are currently, what their strength of schedule is remaining. So this is a pretty in-depth percentage chart, you might say, of the standings. So you can see, obviously, we've fallen now to the 2nd seed. Most likely seed right now is technically still the 1st, but it's a tricky one because the Thunder have a little bit easier schedule than us going forward. And we have some tough teams that we're going up against in the near future. We'll jump into the schedule here in a second, but I did just want to show you this general landscape. Now, a couple things to note here, and this is going to set us up for looking at the schedule, seeing how possible these possible remaining records are. We have 18 games remaining left in the season. Other teams have 19, other teams have 20, some people have less. I mean, the Lakers have played a lot of games already. We're not going to be looking too far down. Once you get down to the Mavericks, Lakers, and Warriors, even including the Kings at 36 wins, it's going to require a lot of winning from them to beat us if we go even just a semi-respectable record. So what do we want to get to wins-wise? We have 18 games left. What would be a subpar number? Think in your head, what would be like that's like not great, or something that we maybe haven't even done this season? What if we went 8-10 in the last 18 games of our season? If we go 8-10 over the last games, or if we lose to the Lakers tomorrow, like 7-10, something in that, you can do the math on your own there. But if we go that much, how much would that cost us? Like, how bad would we fall if that happened? So if you take a look here, obviously some teams like the Nuggets, the Clippers, they could easily pass us if they just went 500, and like the Nuggets will pass if they go 500 and we go 8-10, they will pass us. If the Clippers go 500, it's close, or close to 500, it's close to us. 8-10 obviously is not a super strong record for the last 18 games. So if they went in their last 21 games, if I'm doing that math correctly, if they go like 12-9 or something like that, is that right? Then they're tied with us or better than us, and it depends on tiebreakers and things like that. When I look at the seeding, and what I think is most important to me is the first round of the playoffs having home court advantage. Of course, I'd like to have home court advantage as long as possible in the playoffs, i.e. the 1 seed. I just don't know how possible the 1 seed is going to be without Karl-Anthony Towns. I know Anthony Edwards can ascend, but can he ascend like he did for the Pacers every single night? Probably not. So I don't know if we can have them even 75% of the time, 60% of the time. I don't know if he can do that like that to take us over the hump and continue to be the 1 seed. If he can, he should be the MVP. It just flat out. He should be the MVP if that happens. So I do think we should be prepared for some amount of slippage in the standings. Um, so that means top four. We want to be top four going into the playoffs. So then we look at the Pelicans, who are at fifth, the Suns, who are at sixth, and then the Kings somewhat at seventh. Again, I guess the grander goal, or whatever I'm trying to say, the better goal would be to be top six, because you want to have just a set playoff series instead of the play-in. You do not want to fall into the play-in. Well, let me make you feel a lot better about the play-in. So, like, if we go 8-10 over those last 18 games of ours, the Kings, who are in seventh and in the play-in right now, that means that they'd have to get to 52 wins. 52 wins, they have 20 games left, which would mean that they need to win 16 games. They need to go 16-4 over their last 20 games. Do we think that's happening? Most likely no. That would also require us to go 8-10. So 8-10 is kind of not good. Even if you adjust those by a little bit to make it a little bit more possible, it's still pretty unlikely. A lot of these teams, we're going to look at the schedule for the Timberwolves here, but a lot of these teams play teams that are not easy cakewalk games. You know, there's a couple thrown in here. A lot of us play the Pistons. A lot of us play the Wizards for like a game or two, like a game, but not many. It's a lot of them against each other. So I think it's most likely that a lot of these teams, including the Timberwolves, stay around 500. So then we take a look. That means that they have to go 16-4. I don't think that's happening. The Suns, they'd have to go 15-3. I could be wrong. Somewhere in that realm as well. They have a lot to do, work there. So let's take a look at the Pelicans. The Pelicans are probably the most likely team that have a chance at ousting us for the top four. They're at 38 wins right now, which means to get to the 52 win mark, they'd have to win 14 more games. They have 19 remaining, so they would have to go 14-5 to end the season. Certainly possible. They did just win last night, but I do think they have a tough schedule coming up. It's not the easiest thing. But before we get into the Pelicans schedule, let's look into the Timberwolves schedule. So let's take a look at the Timberwolves schedule here. We just played Cleveland. We lost to Cleveland. This is today when I'm recording this. And then when we're playing the Lakers, the Clippers, Utah, all road games for the Timberwolves. Let's take a look at how many games. I think the best way to look at this is could win games and should win games. So could win, I think we can easily beat both the Lakers and the Clippers. I don't think that's impossible even without Karl Anthony Towns. Ant shows up to play against some of these more marquee teams. So I would not be surprised to see that. I think he wants to, especially in LA. He has a shoe release, another shoe, a colorway coming out of his shoe next week. So I'm sure that he wants the LA crowd to really know about him and have the world know about him. Last night was tricky, back to back. You just had an emotional game. You're going into another now nationally televised game. That's tricky. So I don't blame him too much for not showing up for that game. He also sometimes does not show up after a lot of praise in the national media. So we'll see. But either way, Lakers, Clippers, I think he shows up for at least the Lakers game. Those are both could win games. It's certainly not like, oh, we're not going to win. Like that is not the case. And most of these games are probably could win games. Utah, you would hope. You would really hope that you win both of those. You pretty much need to win both of those. If you win 2 of those games, that's huge. 2 of the next 4 games, you're feeling great. 2 of the 4, you're at 500. That's a good pace. If you're on 500 for the rest of the season, then you're golden for the top 4. Speaking of which, to get to the magic number for the Timberwolves to get into the top 4 is 14 wins. So if they win 14, there's no matter what, that is over. Like every other team could keep pace and win a bunch of games. If they win 14 games, they are a top 4 seed. And to make it into the playoffs, just like the 6th seed, they'd have to win 12 games, which is just over 500 for the last 19 games or 18 games. Well, it's not just over 500. That's a decent amount, but still, that's the pace that they've been winning it this season, anyways. Then we play Denver, Cleveland. Those are tricky. They're home games. They're the blue. The blue is the home games. Denver has specifically skipped the White House so that they could play the Timberwolves on the 19th at Minnesota. They are going to take that game very seriously, Denver is. Minnesota's on the second night of a back-to-back where they're flying in from Utah, albeit going home. But that's still a tricky one. I do think the Timberwolves play well against Denver, but Denver's looked really good lately. Cleveland, we just played them. They may have Mitchell back by then. but they're a tricky team regardless, as we saw. So that's a tricky one. Golden State has not been great this year, but they have been, well, in general this year, they have not been great. But over the last month, they've been fantastic. They've just got Andrew Wiggins back. That could be a tricky one. It is at home. We do show up again for teams like the Warriors. But these are all could win games. Other than the Utah games, those are should wins. They're could wins. And then we play Denver at Denver. We play Detroit. That is a should win game. So if you're keeping tally, we're up to 3 should win games, and every game is a could win game. I mean, there's really no games that are not could win games. And then we play Chicago. Really, Chicago there really should be no argument. This should be a win. So we'd be talking about 4 wins there in the month of March that absolutely should happen. Now, of course, maybe we lose one of those games to Utah, but then we beat like Denver or something like that. Something like that could happen. I think the math adds up to at least 4 wins in the month of March, if not closer to 5. So let's take a look at April now. All right, so moving on to April, we play Houston at home, we play Toronto at home, back-to-back. Again, look at all these back-to-backs, it's insane. Those are both probably 2 should-win games. We should be able to beat Houston. Houston's been a little feisty lately, but we should be able to beat Houston. Toronto beat us early in the season. This should be our chance to get back at them. These are 2 should-win games. I know that they're not as bad as teams like, the Pistons or the Wizards, but these are 2 should-win games. Do I doubt that we could lose to one of these 2 teams? No, but we should win against one of these teams, if not both of these teams. So now we had 4 should-win games at least 4 should-win games in March, and now we've added 2 more. There's 6. Remember, the magic number that we're trying to get to is 14 for the playoffs, or for top 4, but we're trying to get to 8 wins to kind of guarantee that situation that I was talking about earlier. So if we get to the beginning of April and we have 6 of those wins, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games remaining. We just need to win 2 of those last 6 games. One of those games is against Washington. Washington has not been good this season. Now, of course, we all have the flashbacks of the Wizards going crazy against us almost every time we play them. But the Wizards should be a win. We are now up to 7 of the 8 wins that we need to kind of make ourselves feel a lot more comfortable about a top 4 seed. And then there's 5 remaining games. So Phoenix, that's a tricky one. The Lakers, that's a tricky one. Denver, that's a tricky one. Atlanta maybe could be a win, but they might be in some situation where they are playing with a little bit more care there. And then we've got Phoenix to end up the season. So I think out of those other 5 remaining games in April, we can find at least 1 win. Maybe you beat Phoenix, but then you lose to the Lakers in Atlanta or something like that, or every other one. It could be that. But that gets you to 8 wins. That is a real possibility. 8 and 10 for the last 18 should be very, very possible. So now let's take a look at the Pelicans. Sorry for the change of schedule look, but we're in the real app now. And let's take a look at how many games. So again, they need to go 14 and 5 to have a chance at us if we go 8 and 10. 8 and 10 is bad, the worst stretch we would have had in almost any point of the season. But of course makes sense because of Towns. So let's take a look. Are they playing really easy teams or are they playing really bad teams? They play the Hawks. The Hawks are around a 500 team. They are not going to be that easy of a win. They probably should win. They play the Cavs. The Cavs is tricky. They play the Clippers. That's tricky. Okay, here's a win. The Nets, they're a little feisty too, but they should probably beat the Nets. The Magic have been no joke this year. They play the Heat. That's not something to scoff at. The Pistons, okay. The Thunder. The end of March is crazy for them, and this will really be where we can start to really understand where we are going to fall. Because even if let's say we have a really bad March, still, the Pelicans have to win so many games for this to happen. They play the Thunder, the Bucks, and the Celtics to end out the month of March. That's crazy. That's a tricky stretch for them. If they win all 3 of those games, it's time to get scared. If they lose 2 of these games or all 3 of these games, the Timberwolves are safe. Let's go to April. They play the Suns, the Magic again, the Spurs, the Suns again, the Blazers again, the Kings, the Warriors, the Lakers. So the endings of these months, there's 6 crazy games where they are going to be high stress games for them. And of course, I think that it's pretty safe to assume that all of the teams that you see here in the top 10 are going to be set. It would require quite a run from the Rockets and quite a fall off from any of these other teams to really make that happen. I mean, they're several games above. So we're talking a pretty significant thing. So the Jazz, it's possible. The Rockets, it's possible technically. But as you can see here, based off of strength of schedule and just the games remaining, the possibility that they end up lower than number 11 is 99%. So it's not happening, basically. So looking at this feels pretty good, right? I think that calms us a little bit. That calmed me a little bit. Again, just to summarize, the Pelicans basically have to go 14-5 as a minimum to end the season, unless the Timberwolves go less than 8-10, which would be shocking. Certainly not impossible with the injuries to Karl Anthony Towns, Monte Morris, and some other banged up players. But realistically, I have a hard time believing that Ant wouldn't come to play enough to win us 8 games. 8 games in 18 should be very possible, especially when some of your opponents are the Pistons, the Wizards, and the Jazz. That's half of those teams. If half of those games are against those teams, or half of those games are against those teams to get to 8 wins, so 4 of those games are, you're going to get it. You're going to get there. So I think personally, the Timberwolves are going to end up somewhere in the probably 3 or 4 range. I do think that Denver will probably pass us. I think the Thunder will probably be first place. Again, similar to Timberwolves, would I be shocked if they went on a bad streak? No, I think that could happen, but they've got a lot of momentum right now. They're looking pretty good, and the Nuggets look really good again. I think it's very possible that we fall to 3 or 4, which then does line us up with a Pelicans matchup or a Suns matchup. And I know I said in a live stream a couple days ago that I'm pretty comfortable with anybody in the West, Ja Morant-esque. I mean, there are a couple teams that I don't want to play, but Pelicans and Suns are tricky because they're winnable, but they're also really feisty teams that could really put up a fight. The Suns have beaten us a lot over the last few years. The Pelicans have played well. When they're fully healthy, the Pelicans are a very scary team to anybody in the West. I don't care what team you are. They're scary to everybody. They have everything. They have size. They have power. They have shooting. They have defense. They can do it all when they're healthy, but are they healthy? That is the question. But that's it for this video. I appreciate you watching. It was weird not to do a live stream and not be able to talk to you guys as I was talking about Wolves related things. If you like videos like this, please leave a like on the stream, like I said, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Where do you think the Timberwolves are going to fall or not fall in the standings? Where do you think they're going to end up? I personally think 3 or 4 is the most likely, but not beyond 5. Do you think the Timberwolves are going to go worse than 8-10 to follow up the season? Let me know what you think in the comments and join us for a live stream. Like I said, we do this after almost every game. It's a little bit less like this and a little bit more based on player performance and, just initial overreactions and things like that. But it's fun. We got a really good community. Shout out to our Discord. Shout out to our TikTok. Again, please, if you're still here, you should subscribe. You should like the video. You should join the TikTok, join the Discord, join it all. And we will see you in a live stream soon. Thanks for watching.